Guys, hello, hello. I thought I'd come back for story time. And this book is special because it is from my favorite Christmas movie, The Polar Express. And you see the train. And I'm in the living room, the dining room. More better lighting here. So let's get on with it. Okay. Alright. Blair, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Not working out right. Okay, there we go. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. Sorry. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound. A sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. That night, I did hear sounds, though. Not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train sitting perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and my robe, and I I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. All aboard! The conductor cried out. I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, to the North Pole, of course. This was his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children. all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as the melted candy bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lone wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran, along rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills and hills into snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice. The great Polar Ice Cap. Lights appeared in the distance. This is my favorite part. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, the conductor said, is the North Pole. Oops. Oh my goodness. The North Pole, it was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. They were gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children. The elves! Outside, we saw hundreds of elves as our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole. We slowed to a crawl. So crowded, so crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd onto the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and pantsed, all ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harness. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us, and pointing to me, he said, "Let's have this young fella right here." He jumped onto his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked me, "Now, what do you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the silver bells from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to go cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood up, holding it bell high above him, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeer's names and cracked his whip, and his team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the cold, dark night polar sky. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I was sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved. "Goodbye," the conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. So I said, "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note found on this. There was a note. My goodness. Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Sorry about the glare. There we go. Seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I have ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, when I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. My goodness. And one time, most of my friends could hear the bell. But as years passed, it felt silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. Thank you all for joining me today for story time. I have one more book that I would like to read tomorrow at some point. I don't know, I might come back later and do it. I don't know. We'll see. Y'all have a great week, not just a good week. And Christmas love and hugs. Bye-bye.